Uncle Jen, I don't seem to be connected in YouTube.
Just record it and don't worry about the YouTube. Just record it and we can upload those later.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Heavenly Parents Holy Community, Oceania Hoon Dok Hae with our Reverend Yutaka Yamada. Today being Reverend Yutaka is on his way, who already arrived here in Australia. We'll be having our Reverend John as our speaker this morning. Today is Thursday, the 4th of August, 2022, or the seventh day of the 7th month in the 10th year of Chunil Guk. To begin our day, yes, let us first offer our bow to our Heavenly Parent and true parents of heaven and earth, and humankind. Chunjin sampo monem ke kyumbe baro. Let's recite family pledge both in Korean and in English. 3. 천일국 주인 우리 가정은 참 사랑을 중심하고 4대 심정봉과 3대 왕봉과 원조권을 완성하것을 맹세하나이다. Family pledge number 3. Our family, the owner of Chunil Guk, pledges to perfect the 4 great realms of heart, the 3 great kingships, and the realm of the royal family by centering on true love. May I request Auntie Jacinta to please pray.
Morning, Heavenly Father. Thank you very much once again that we are sharing together over your word and True Mother's anthology, remembering and explaining to us the life that is going to become like the backbone of the New Age, Father, of the spirit of service and responsibility that is going to always lifting us up into a new realm of identifying ourselves as the true children of God. And we really thank you, Heavenly Father, that we can share this with everyone, and we must share this with everyone because we want there to be peace in this world, Father, and there's got to be a beautiful thing that will bring us all together. Thank you so much, Father, for your heart and love and never giving up.
Yes.
And yeah, pray all these things in the name of Ian and Jacinta Derbyshire, Central Blessed Family, adieu.
Adieu. Yeah, thank you very much, Auntie Jacinta. For our Hoon Dok Hae message, let us now welcome our Reverend John. Welcome.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. And yeah, as Roa said, Reverend Yutaka is actually arriving at 6:30 a.m. this morning here in Sydney, so he's still flying. And I am going to offer the message today, so I'm going to share this particular speech that Father gave. It's called, as you can see, "Let us build a world of peace through living for the sake of others." It's in the Pyonghwa Gyong, a selection of True Parent speeches. It's in Book 1, Principles of True Peace, and it was given on the 16th of September 2004 in the Little Angels Performing Arts Centre in Seoul, Korea, and it was an invitational banquet for US finance and business leaders. And background of this, Father had asked a number of dignitaries to come because this was the time that the Yosu Resort was bought, and Father is explaining about it. But this speech is predominantly about, even though he asked them and they probably were expecting something else, anyway, he spoke about how to build a world of peace through living for the sake of others. So I'll just go through this and let's begin. So Father says, the human desire to achieve the ideal of peace has been consistent throughout history, yet eternal peace has never been manifested. This is the problem. Human beings have lived in ignorance, chaos, division, and strife. To this day, we have been unable to establish an absolute value system that can be shared by all people. An absolute value system cannot arise from human beings who harbour internal conflicts and are always changing. The root of this system can only be found in God, the absolute being and the creator. God, who is the essence of love, created human beings to be the recipient of absolute love. One cannot claim for oneself the status of owner or master of love, and that is true even for God. So that's the sad situation that God is in, that God cannot claim the status of owner or master of love, because God's love was stolen. The objects of his love were stolen at the very beginning, as we know. So only one's partner grants that status. This is a fundamental principle. One needs to live for one's partner and neighbour. This absolute value system of love stands above any political ideal or principle of economics. It is the heavenly law that transcends all ages. What kind of being is God, who created this universe and the heavenly laws? God has manifested himself in the universe as the quintessence of living for the sake of others. Though he is the King of knowledge, he does not ask us to come to him through knowledge. Though he is the owner and king of power, authority, money, and material, he does not view these as conditions to come before him. God says that anyone can come to his side as long as they live for the sake of others. Only those who live for others can become the counterpart of the center and stand in the position of a central figure. God is not an egocentric dictator. Rather, God invests himself for humankind's sake. Thus, for tens of thousands of years, our original minds have sought to follow God. All beings must exist for the sake of other beings in order to maintain their place in this universe as governed by the laws of heaven. The principle of living for the sake of others has been valid throughout all ages and in all nations. An egocentric and self-centered way of life will bring about evil, while a life of living for the greater good will bring prosperity. So, as we know that many of us have lived our life of faith, practicing living for the sake of others, and we know that whenever we think of ourselves too much, then always things that we didn't want ended up happening. So your Father is saying, over and over again, living for the sake of others really is, the way to bring prosperity to everyone. All things can be brought into harmony by living for greater goodness. This opens all doors to individuals, families, tribes, races, nations, the world, and heaven. The self-evident truth of the benefit of living for the sake of others must be put into practice on the path of true life. This principle is valid no matter where you may be. It is unchanging and eternal. If God were to appear before such a sage as Buddha, Confucius, Jesus, or Muhammad, and ask them what he thought about this principle, they would surely reply that this principle is true. Do you feel the same way? Please keep in mind that this is the law of the universe, which is needed for men and women to live in their truest form. Father's emphasizing that this is not just an idea, but actually a law of heaven, that this is the principle, and this is the way for us to achieve, as Father said, our truest form. What standards set by people in history do people of today aspire to reach? Only the standards of people who lived for the sake of others with a spirit of sacrifice remain as something worth striving toward in the world today. Those who set such standards are remembered as saints, great men and women, patriots and children of filial piety. That which was accomplished through a spirit of self-sacrifice is remembered. Sacrificial effort benefits the greater good. Please think about this. The reason my teachings will emerge as the dominant thought of the 21st century is that I have been espousing a world where people live for the sake of others, which is the direct opposite of a world where people live for themselves. Consequently, the hope of human beings can be found in the unification movement. You may think that I am being overbearing in saying this, but please understand that I take full responsibility for such an assertion. The world of the future for countless years to come will follow in the footsteps of this group, which chooses to live for the sake of others rather than for its own sake. The world does not follow those who live solely for their own sake. The world doesn't like such people. How will we achieve harmony and unity? It is not achievable through force, money, power, or knowledge. Everything can be resolved based on love by living for the sake of others. And this is something we can feel proud about, that our movement is really the hope of humanity. It is really has a standard and has an ideal that is achievable by everybody. And Father is saying this is true, and that he takes responsibility for it. We can conclude that by living based on true love and for the sake of others, we can restore the world of hell into the heavenly world. You will see for yourselves, is there anyone here who opposes me? In the past, individuals, families, nations, and the world united against me. And now there is no one who does not acknowledge me, because they can see the results. They can see the results in the heavens, on the earth, in the people themselves, and in the winds of peace. Please don't be offended by the conclusions I'm expressing. The way for someone to come to your side is not through struggling with that person. It is by thinking of them as if you were his or her parent, teacher, or supervisor. And we should, all of us, strive to, become that for each other, and not just keep to our smaller group, but to really expand so that we can help everyone that we come into contact with. That is the way. I ask you to live sincerely for the sake of others for 3 years. Then you will come to understand what I am saying. You must be aware that action in line with the principles of the universe is what moves someone's original mind. Please live more for the sake of others. Those who do so can be entrusted with responsibility. If there are 10 people, the person who loves and lives most for the sake of the other 9 will become the central person. All 9 will go to that person. In general, people think that living for others entails loss, and it is not beneficial to oneself. However, you must know that the truth is otherwise. The principle enables you to become the owner, the central figure and heir. This is how heavenly law works. And this is what we have to really practice. Father is saying, I ask you to live sincerely for the sake of others for 3 years, to sincerely invest ourselves to really practice that. I know that this is always harder than it looks because of many times not received, but we do so irrespective because we don't lose anything. As Father says, in general, people think that living for others entails loss and is not beneficial to oneself. But Father's saying that's not true. You end up being the one that people rely on. You end up being the owner, the central figure and heir. This is how heavenly law works. We need to follow and fulfill heavenly law. Distinguished guests, renowned leaders of Korea, and all our brothers and sisters here in Hoon Dok. In my lifetime, I have been able to create a global foundation that transcends race, religion, and nationality in 191 countries. Despite constant misunderstanding and persecution, and God, the spirit world, and the earth have recognized me as the true parents of humankind and King of Peace. The reason for this is that I have practiced the heavenly way of true love that calls one to be the first to give and to live for others. I did not ask to be made the King of Peace. This title was given to me. Harmony and unity can be achieved, and the ideal of peace can be realized only when we are motivated by genuine love to live for the benefit of others. I have guided humanity under this practical principle of true love, true parents and true families according to the heavenly way. The ideal family movement, which is based on the marriage blessing ceremony and peace initiatives that transcend nationality, race, and religion, are aspects of the true love movement. This movement calls us to live a personal, exemplary lifestyle by investing ourselves to the advantage of others. The various educational institutions established in a number of nations worldwide were created through my sacrificial investment in an effort to manifest the founding ideals of loving heaven, loving humankind, and loving one's nation. And that's our ideals as well. When we recognize that loving is living for the sake of others, then we are living for the sake of heaven. We are living for the sake of humankind, and we are living for the sake of one nation. If we can, our own nation, if we can do that, then truly our world and environment will change as more and more people continue to love one another. The global media institutions within news world communications, including the Washington Times and the Segei Times, were created for the sake of guiding the world in true love through a responsible, just, and fair press. interreligious peace initiatives, education in life's philosophy, projects showcasing culture and arts, the promotion of technology transfer, activities of education and science that bring people together across religious and national divides, service activities, guidance for youth, the women's movement, the cultivation of sports, and all the other projects I have founded are grounded in the principle of true love. And we are a part of many of these projects, and we are the vehicle through which that heavenly true love is shared with others. I act with a clear sense of purpose and direction under the ideal of the interdependence of all human beings based on absolute values that are above the pursuit of personal gain. Men and women must walk the path of the truth and true love in accordance with heavenly law. The path of true love is the fundamental route that takes priority over any human activity or undertaking. No matter how great your fortune or power, without the foundation of living for the sake of others, all those things are transient and are destined to disappear. On the other hand, a life of giving and living for the sake of others automatically enables a person to become the subject and central figure. I hope we all have had the experience of living for the sake of others that ended up resulting in us to become the subject and central figure within the sphere of what we were living for. Our true Father has lived for the sake of earth and lived for the sake of heaven, and so everything has come to recognize our true parents as the subject and central figure. And this is also our path as well. If you go beyond self-interest and focus on your work on the macroscopic ideal of peace and further on reconciliation and peace on the Korean Peninsula, then I truly believe you will be able to attain something of greater value than just material benefit. In accordance with God's principles for the providence of recreating his original ideal, the era before the coming of heaven that was shaped by egocentric lives has passed away, ushering in the era after the coming of heaven, which will bring about the ideal fruits of this absolute value system. People who say they will live self-centeredly will remember their words when they cross the dividing line between the era before and the era after the coming of heaven. So, we need to also recognize that we are in this new era, the era after the coming of heaven. We're already in the 10th year of Chonrul, and the world is changing, though the persecution is still there. As long as we continue to live for the sake of others, then we can succeed. All barriers will be eliminated in the era of God's eternal kingdom of peace, as people who live with true love becomes the owners and central figures of that age. Conflicts arising from narrow-mindedness and self-centeredness over differences of skin color, language, customs, and geographical territory will disappear. Now is the time to build the ideal world in which we can live for one another together, based on a system of absolute values. In conclusion, I pray that God's eternal blessings will be with you all as you emerge in your work in the spirit of altruism in accordance with the heavenly principles. Thank you. So, this Father's message here to these finances and business people who come to see the plan and vision for Yosu Tourist Resort. I'm not sure how they would have received this message, but I think it would have encouraged them, to put in investment into the tourist resort, because constantly being reminded about the benefits of true love, of living for the sake of others, of really leaving something that others can enjoy, to bring peace and harmony and to really live together as a loving community. There's nothing better than going to a resort where people going there to in a way enjoy themselves, but if the whole the theme park is set up for the enjoyment of the guests, then it becomes a really wonderful place, that people really feel that they are loved, and also hopefully get stimulated, to want to share and love others. It's like a Christmas, when you're a child and you live, in the culture, that celebrates a Christmas, a major holiday of the year, and everyone is, preparing gifts to give to other people, and preparing gifts to give to your family and to your parents and to your brothers and sisters, and the joy of giving and seeing their faces light up, and the joy of receiving a gift and being touched by the concern and love, and if someone misses out, then everyone wants to make sure that they are happy. We have those sort of experiences, and it's sort of like a mutual. Now is the time to build the ideal world in which we can live for one another together, based on a system of absolute values. And Father, is really emphasizing living for the sake of others. Really investing ourselves, completely, and not worrying about ourself at all. This is the common thread, and it's the law of heaven, and it is what brings about true change and true happiness for everyone, including God. We know that at the current time, the world is still divided, and it is still, when we look at the news, that is full of all of the sadness of human history, and all of the sadness, of the different conflicts and wars, and we can just see a lot of suffering, but also we can see many stories of self-sacrifice, in times of natural disaster, where how people have been rescued and saved from very dire situations, and then the gratitude they have for the rescuer. And we need to help people recognize that our rescuer today on the global and heavenly level is actually our true parents, who represent God's heart and show the model, to really live a life. Father has invested into so many groups and organizations, and our True Mother has expanded those and it brought them to the world level. And it's really, yes, sometimes it's we don't see the result because we're in the middle of building it, and our Mother is in the middle of building the ideal nation that will become a nation that is filled with interdependence and absolute values, yeah, and living for the sake of others, yeah, and mutual prosperity, that it's all done together. So, yeah, I think, you know, that, you know, we can really invest ourselves without any thinking, like Father says there, conflicts arising from narrow-mindedness and self-centeredness over differences of skin color, language, customs, and geographical territory will disappear. You know, we need to reflect ourselves. I mean, because it's done on every level, from the individual all the way to the global level. You know, that, you know, this overcoming of narrow-mindedness, that, you know, that nations are only thinking of their own nation, and ourselves, you know, recognizing how narrow-minded we are. I mean, we live, with the desire to fulfill God's will, but to be able to embrace everybody, there is, you know, absolute standards and absolute values that we need to live by, and that really is to love everyone irrespective of their circumstance, and to, you know, really overcome our self-centeredness, so that, you know, we really build a world of harmony. And that's, you know, Father said he's taken responsibility, but it's also us that, you know, that need to continue that responsibility. You know, together, you know, we can live for one another together. I mean, that is really the goal of heaven, that we are one human family. So, as Father says in conclusion, I pray God's eternal blessings will be with you all as you engage in your work in the spirit of altruism in accordance with the heavenly principles. And thank you. That's where our true Father concludes, and also I will conclude there. So thank you, and God bless, and I'll pass it back to Roa. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Reverend John. Thank you for that wonderful message. That let us build a world of peace through living for the sake of others. Yeah, of course, this word, like living for the sake of others, even the word, of course, through parents, those are words that we always hear about, and we're really very familiar with it. That, yeah. But for some people, for the, you know, billion peoples of the world, this kind of word is really, how to say, it's a word that we don't usually hear. So I remember the time when I first hear that word from the mouth of my spiritual mother, and then I was like, living for the sake of other, what is that? Something like that. So those are, you know, these are not good ideas. These are, as we know, are the revelation from heaven. And these words are, as we all know, true parents already practice it. That's why they can continually remind us of this word, constantly reminding us of this word, because it's something that they have practiced throughout their life. Whatever they do, small scale, big scale, whatever, in different medias or in different aspects of life, it will always be going down to living for the sake of others. Like that. So, and also, I remember this word, the world does not follow those who live solely for their own sake. During the lectures, right, we'll be asked, do you remember your grandfather? What's his name? And then another one, how about your great grandfather? Do you remember his name? I don't remember actually. How about your, you know, going back many histories, just some few generations ago, but why you don't remember them? Do you know why? Some kind of, you know, lectures. Yeah, because how about Jesus? Do you know Jesus? How about Buddha? Do you know them? Do you know this patriot? And then, yeah, we know their life, whatever, how they grew up. Why do you think we remember them? It's because they live for the sake of others. And yeah, that really makes sense. People will naturally be interested, will naturally go and follow those people who live for the sake of others. And they will be remembered, not only their name, even where they grew up, who they're with, and anybody in connection to them will be remembered as well. So that's why That's how we also want to be remembered. And the way for someone to come to your side is not only through struggling with that person. So very, 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 guilty of this. Yeah, many times we know this already. Living for the sake of others is the way to win people. It's not to struggle with a person. I mean, of course, the most bad thing is to, how to say, not to talk the person, to ignore. That's really that the person does not exist. So bad like that. But yeah, the way is, yeah, we know this because something that we already practiced during our missions, fundraising, witnessing. To be able to win somebody, you have to serve that person or pray for that person, at least take initiative to talk to that person. It's really common, but many times we have to be reminded of. And yeah, true parents is the closest, the living for the sake, the closest in this life. Okay, the word living for the sake of other is, yeah, true parents is the embodiment of those words. And we look at ourselves, yeah, try to practice. And then, yeah, even Uncle John also sharing about living for the sake of other. But yeah, I can testify that Uncle John also, yeah, living for the sake of others, especially when we stay together here at the center. I can see how he slept very late, he wake up very early. And the same is true with Auntie Shizio, is really supporting him. Yeah. Yeah. So, and in my family, I can see my mom and dad, life is not easy, but they still striving and living for the sake of others. So those kind of example, we cannot forget. Those kind of things we will always remember. Yeah. So thank you. I'll open up for others to share. Yes, Antina.
Good morning. Oh, here it is. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Yes, yeah. Thank you for the speech, Reverend John. I was just like thinking, what does this mean for us today, living for the sake of others? You know, when we first joined as single members, we gave our life for this ideal. And but really we were also laying the foundation pretty much. But today, you know, as older people with families, and especially now some of our situations in very nuclear family, what does it mean for us? Practically, theoretically, we know what it is. It's pretty much part of our life. But how do I apply this in my current situation? You know, when it's supposed to be the eternal truth, which is living for the sake of others. So this is my challenge, is how I apply it and what does it mean in my life today. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Antina. Yeah, that's a question we always have to ask ourselves, right? How do I apply this word in my present situation? Thank you. Yes, Uncle Greg. Gregory
Yeah.
had.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay, great. Yeah, just I was studying the study guide for the exposition of the divine principle, and when you come to the three stages, it says that the creation grows autonomously through the principle, whereas the human beings grow through the principle and through the human responsibility. So I'm thinking, what is this principle by which the creation grows? And of course, the principle, as opposed to laws and order and principles, the principle is for living for the others, living for the other's sake. So like when Father explains or teaches divine principles, say like the protons and electrons come together to form a molecule, and the molecules come together to form minerals, and minerals feed the plants, and then the plants feed the animals, and the smaller animals give up their life for the bigger animals, etc., etc. So this is then a very good example of how the animals or the whole creation is living for the sake of others through this principle of you know, giving and giving up their life and living for the sake of others. Just a thought on that. Thank you.
Aju, thank you very much, Uncle Gregory Stone. So we can see the model in the nature, right, of doing for the sake of other, as what Uncle John was saying. It's a universal law, and it's in the principle. It's something that we have to do. We should be naturally doing. However, as we know, the reason why we're not naturally doing it.
Mr. Rai has his hand up.
Yep, Mr. Arai, and then next Auntie.
Good morning, and I think living for others is it's a good question, and how we practically doing or not, and I can say like Reverend John is really living for sake of others, and but when we young. We built an ideal family, but we cut it, you know, family. Family is really pain. And we are really exciting. You know, we are building an ideal family, but family was crying. That time, then now, like in Japan, it's many first J and the elder couple are really exciting for mission. Living for family, but I think their second J are suffering. This is one of the cause to Mr. Abe's shooting. And so this movement, we say living for others, either family, but society not recognized. Then, so I think, but I feel getting older, I'm 75 years old. Then when young age, you know, I joined high school at that time. Restore nation is no problem. But that is one of the slogan. But I think to realize it, to understand it, it's really, I think it takes a time. And so I really, it's a little bit, it's a progress. It's a living for others. It's whether it's a living for others, and also love for enemy. That is really one of the challenge, and very. It's when we challenge, we find that not easy. But understand that meaning. So I think we're getting really more mature many way, and through the lot of sacrifice, I think actually I think God sacrificed more than us, and to parents to sacrifice more than. That's why I think sick, you know, or it's a good song at the principle, that's true, but how we can, you know, as a persons, as a daily life, how we can mature, and sometimes not easy to do. It's a practice, but we try anyway. And Greg said, I think nature looks like living for sake of us, really, it's naturally, but I think, you know, we are one of the challenge, and I think a good model. That's why one day we can a little bit, you know, close to that, you know, goal. Anyway, thank you, Laura. Thank you, today's MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arai. Thank you. Next, Uncle Chris or Auntie Debbie.
Oh, good morning. Yeah, from something that just struck me more deeply than before about the talk this morning is that it's absolutely pointless to compromise. You know, if you're building a foundation, because I'm going to go to Melbourne and try to reinvigorate Ocean Challenge. And of course, I'm thinking about reaching out to groups and how do I introduce concepts of the principle and things like that. but it's absolutely pointless not to state the truth, because in the end, that seems an obvious statement, but actually we do that all the time. Our movement is doing that. We do it in our relationships because we value them. We build relationships with people and we compromise our values thinking we can rescue it later. But I just realized this morning, I know it's like Heavenly Father touched me, and true Father, I believe when you read that speech out, John, Father was actually separating the people that were there. Put yourself in that position. There were millionaires there thinking, oh, if I just don't upset these guys, I can use their money. But he didn't do that. He just stated those facts to actually separate the people, because the motivation of how the enterprise is built from the beginning is so important, you know, and the whole direction it's going to go. We keep thinking, oh, I can recover it later. But I'm starting to realize it's totally wrong. You've got to state the obvious right from the beginning. So that was what struck me this morning. And just quickly on the point of applying living for the sake of others, living for the sake of others is number 7 on the pledge, right? It's not number 1. So we should have grown up through those stages to become a person who really can live for others. So if you want to know how to apply it, go back and think, okay, what's number 1? Number 1 is building a nation, right? Can I apply living for the sake of others when the area of my responsibility, what we're asked for, applies to that? Then we start to see how difficult it is, you know, and then we go down the list. But anyway, just a thought on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Chris. Yes, Auntie Margaret.
Good morning, everyone. Just remembering a father's words talking about the patriot of Korea, where he said that he was, I forget the name, Isun Shin, was loved by Koreans, but he hated Japanese. And father went on to explain that this cannot be the standard. So the individual truth body, embodiment of truth in the exposition of divine principle brings to mind how living for the sake of others is limited in this fallen world through cultural barriers. And therefore, to me, living for the sake of others is teaching, is education of, from God's point of view, how God lives for the sake of others. And at one time, going with President Tommy to True Parents' birthday, we were in Chongpyeong for the celebration, and Father spoke of living for the sake of others. And President Tommy turned to me and he said, "We are doing that already in Palau, aren't we?" And I said, "Would you do what you're doing in Palau to the people of Solomon Island?" And he said, "Yeah, you got me on that one." Because there is a cultural divide. You know, we love our own family, we love our own children, we love our own native people, but when it comes to other people, there is a barrier. So I think that remains for all of us to educate whomever we are witnessing to of the highest standard of God's point of view to all of his children. So this theme of one family under God is what we're aiming to do. And it's not easy with our own hearts when we easily love our own nuclear family, but cannot love the children of the other people. who are strange or funny or not doing what they're supposed to do. So anyway, that's reminded me of through this speech this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Margaret. Yeah, actually, we have almost come to our prayer time, but anybody still want to share? Yes? Anybody? Yes, thank you. Yeah, one day the world will know that, yeah, in our Heavenly Parents Holy Community, we don't choose our spouse. And oh my God, very, very big living for the sake of others. And especially many of us, we live together with the enemies, descendants, like that. It's really something that the world will, when I first joined, like, oh my God, they don't choose their spouse. Oh my goodness. And then later on, I'll say, okay, I want to be like that too. I want Heavenly Parent to choose for me. So yeah, thank you once again, everyone. And yeah. Aju, aju, aju. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe and healthy. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, John.